Okay, so I'm currently at Shaw's, the hostel at Monson, which is the last stop before the 100-mile wilderness section, and the last stop before Katahdin for like food resupply. So this is really kind of my last opportunity to do a quick gear rundown of what I'm carrying. And part of the difficulty of a gear review is like it's constantly changing on the trail. So this is a snapshot in time of what I'm carrying today. This is not exactly what I've carried the entire trail, but it's a pretty good representation of the essential elements that I would carry if I were doing an AT through hike during the normal season. So where do I start? So the first thing I have here is the Gregory Pack 75 liter Baltoro. This is a large, what you would call tank pack. So it's designed, it weighs like something like 4.5 pounds, which is heavy for a pack. And it's designed to carry heavy loads. So it has a frame in here that distributes the weight just expertly on your pack. You're always better off with a lighter weight in your pack than heavier weight. But what's remarkable is as you increase the weight in this pack, it really starts to shine where like you could put a heavy load in here and be remarkably comfortable, although you still will be slow. It's hard to understand until you've tried it. Things that I like about this pack are, number one, if you're hiking in winter, there was never a moment where I thought, I wish this pack had this, but it doesn't have it. This pack has everything on it. And rather than go through every single detail, I will just highlight a few sections of it. So number one of the definitive aspects of this pack is it has a zipper that starts here and works all the way around. So you're able to actually just peel off the side of the pack and then access your stuff in here. And so I have virtually never in my life used this drawstring top, which is how 50% of backpacks are designed today to be more waterproof. You can only access them from the top, and then they're made of a perfectly waterproof material. So this pack is water resistant, but given more than 2 hours in the rain, it will ultimately leak through. But that's true for every pack that's not designed where it's top access only. So I don't know, pick your poison. But personally, my way of mitigating rain is that the entire pack does not need to be waterproof at all. That's just, I don't know, that's just dumb to me. So there are just a handful of things that need to stay dry in your pack. And so one is your sleeping bag. My sleeping bag stays in a compression sack that I bought at REI at Sea to Summit. I bought it as an afterthought, but on the first 5 days on the AT, it rained for 5 consecutive days straight. And I remember the first night being scared when I opened my pack, because if my sleeping bag is wet, that's going to be a miserable night. And in cold situations, it could be a dangerous night. And so anyway, to my extreme surprise, this is 100% waterproof. You could carry this through a bog, which I did. I think people saw me in New Jersey walk through a bog that was over waist deep. This was at the bottom of my bag. I didn't even think about it until I was halfway through the bog. And then that night, I remember I was like sleeping under a awning in some gardening center, and I was just like, oh crap, this is going to be wet. And then I took it out and it was perfectly dry. So this pack is bulletproof. Another benefit of the pack is that it's not just a dry bag, it's a compression sack. So I can cinch these up and reduce the volume. The sleeping bag would normally come out to about here. And so that reduces volume, which gives me more space in this pack. So this is one of my favorite items that I carry in my entire pack, because it's perfectly waterproof and it reduces the volume of the sleeping bag. You hear a lot of people complain about how if you scrunch down, natural down over time, it breaks down. I don't know. I've scrunched this down every single day for 3 months now, almost 4 months now. And it's been 4 months and there's been no lost whatsoever on my sleeping bag. The sleeping bag that I'm carrying is an Enlightened Equipment Enigma. I'm not going to take it out of the bag. You can look it up. It's I would say, one of the most popular sleeping bags on the entire trail, or really on any trail. So the way that it's designed is it's a quilt. So it looks like a sleeping bag, but it's got 4 button hooks going down it that you can undo. So then you can open it like in a V shape. And then at the very bottom, it's actually sewed. So the toe box, so the bottom, like 1.5 feet of it is sewed circularly, like a normal sleeping bag. But above that point, for the rest of it, you can unbutton it. And so the benefit of that is when you're sleeping at night, you just rotate it to where the button side is on the ground, and your body weight mashes it down, and so there's no air loss. It's blocked by your body weight. And so basically, just imagine it like a shirt that you can unbutton. It's a sleeping bag that you can unbutton all the way down to about where your knees are. And so because they design it that way, it eliminates like a third of the material in the sleeping bag, which eliminates weight. I can't tell you what the weight of the sleeping bag is. I can just tell you that it's the lightest weight sleeping bag on the market, and that's good enough for me. Enlightened Enigma is the sleeping bag. I think it's like, I won't say prices, I don't remember. Okay, so that's a pretty important item. I'm trying to work in order of importance. So next concept is, I was saying before, when the bag gets wet, the things that need to stay dry are in their own dry bags. Like, I don't compromise at all. I don't want to trust my backpack to keep my sleeping bag dry. I want it 100% dry, always, if you're hiking in winter, because you'll die if you get that wrong. The other thing that I carry is a Sea to Summit bag back here. I bought this at just some gear store. When I bought it, I intentionally bought it oversized. It's bigger than what I normally need. However, when it is actually raining, I pause on trail and I add additional items to it. And so, like, I have clothing that gets heavy when it gets wet. That would go into the dry bag when it's raining. I have this jacket, which I don't want to get wet. I would put that in the dry bag when it's raining. So the other things that permanently stay in the dry bag are my electronics over here. And so those always stay buffered from the rain. And so this dry bag, to me, the weight is effectively negligible. So this is always in the bag, and it's usually only full to here. But when it is raining, or if I'm going to ford a river or go through a stream where I think I might fall over, it's packed to the gills. So I have that extra capacity when I need it. Okay, the electronics, no, let's go in order of importance. So the next most important thing I have is this. What is the brand? I forget. It is the best sleeping bag or pad on the market. It's the Thermarest X-Therm. So there are really only 3 pads anyone carries on the trail. One would be the Nemo Switchback, which is an orange foam pad. Thermarest makes a yellow pad that's $200, and then the Thermarest X-Therm is $400, the one that I have. I will tell you right now, if you buy the $200 one, every person I've ever met who has ever purchased that has it pop within the first month of buying it. So you think you're getting a good deal, but you're ultimately getting railed by it. And then the people who are trying to save the money on the $200 one then downgrade to the, I would call it an upgrade, to the Nemo Switchback, which is an orange foam pad that weighs, it's the same weight as this pad here, but it only costs $60. So whoever just spent $200 on a pad that popped is freaked out and would not even consider spending $400 on a pad. They just switched to that Nemo Switchback. But this one, you can see how dirty it is. I've used this every day for 4 months consecutively. Half the time that I'm camping, I'm sleeping not in a shelter on the ground. And I do not even use a ground tarp under this. I literally just put this on the ground. I know it's not totally ethical, but I bought it at REI, and I know that if it pops, I could just replace this thing because I'm only using it for the calendar year Triple Crown. I mean, I'll use it after that if it still exists or if it doesn't pop, but I could always return it at REI if it does pop. But to my extreme surprise, this has been resilient. Like, I strongly endorse this product. The quality of sleep you get on it is just, to me, it's like sleeping on a bed at this point. It's much better than the Nemo Switchback. The other reason that I'm using this and not a Nemo Switchback is that the R rating value of this sleeping pad is something like a 7. R is a measure of like the heat reflectivity of the pad. So if you sleep on a Nemo Switchback foam pad, the orange foam pad, you can sleep on that on the ground down to about 32 degrees Fahrenheit comfortably. You could sleep on this pad down to -40 Fahrenheit comfortably on snow. And because I was hiking through the Whites and the Smokies in winter on snow, where temperatures could, and in Canada, not Canada, but in Maine in January, I needed a pad that was lightweight, resilient, and would work down to -40, and this meets all those criteria. I will say that when I switch to the PCT, I will be switching to a Nemo Switchback because I really don't need the high R value, and blowing this up is probably one of the most unpleasant camp tasks. And so, and then also getting off of it in the morning, it's just kind of a chore. And so I just know from the Nemo switchback, using that on the Arizona trail, you just plop it down, you lie down, and you go right to bed. And when you've done like 25 or 30 miles in a day, the comfort almost doesn't matter at that point. You're so exhausted, like you're good to sleep on a rock. So that's the pad. Put that over here. Let's see. This is pretty important. So this is my tarp that I've been using for the entire AT. So I've never even set up a tent in my life. I have only ever cowboy camped, used a tarp, or slept in a permanent shelter like a AT lean-to. This is basically just a piece of fabric. It's got 6 guy lines that come off of it. So the black ones, I have black, they're on the ends. And so they're what I would tie off to a tree on either end of the tarp. Imagine the tarp pitched like a roof, like a triangular roof. So the ones that come off the tip here, you want them to be ultra long, in my opinion, so that you can tie off to a tree. There's nothing better than tying off to a tree because it's just much sturdier than using your trekking poles. And on the AT, in almost every section, you're able to tie off to trees. Now for the side guy lines, these are about 6 feet long. And so a lot of people leave their guy lines like 1 foot long because they're using, they're always tying off to their trekking poles or to their, what are they called? It doesn't matter what they're called. I can just show you whatever these things are. Tent stakes. I've used my tent stakes 1 time in 4 months. I never use them, but I still carry them because it can be life and death if you're in a place where there's no trees and it's cold and you need tent stakes. But I am always tying off to trees. I will scout for the last half an hour in the day, and I'll pick my campsite based off of tree like orientations to each other that would be good to set down a tarp in. I'll tie off the 6 guy lines on the sides to trees, and then I will tie off the long black lines to trees. And the hardest ones to orient are the long ones. So that's why the ones on the ends run 12 feet out. It's just when I get to a place and I see the perfect number of trees, I don't want to sit there and be like, damn, if my guy lines had been 1 foot longer, I could tie this all off quickly. And so I recommend 6 foot length for each of your side guy lines and 12 foot length for your like tips that tie off to trees. So that probably didn't make sense to a lot of people, but anyway, I basically just use what is like a tarp. It's made of Dyneema Cuban fiber, I think is what it's called, DCF. So this little tarp costs like $400. It is unbelievably light. It's 5.4 ounces. Your typical ultralight tent is 2 pounds. Your typical camping tent is something like 6 pounds, and a really exorbitant tent could be 8 pounds. This is 5 ounces. This is 1/4, 1/3 of a pound. And this to me is something like a bivy sack. It's like if bad weather hits and I'm stuck and I can't get to a shelter, then I pull the tarp out. It's like the backup option to a shelter. And in reality, what I'm benefiting from here is that I'm just saving on weight every day. So for 2,000 miles, I did not carry an extra like 2 or 3 pounds. I also like that when you use a tarp, you're connected to the nature. So like in Maine, I had a moose I woke up at 5 a.m., my eyes are blurry, and I hear what sounds like a big beast running towards my tarp. I open my eyes and I see a moose is running right at me. And then it runs right around the tarp. But I didn't have to like sit there cowering in fear. What is that thing outside? It's a bear. No, really, it's a mouse. And I can tell because I'm in a tarp and I can look out and I can see it. I don't have to again, this is the kind of thing that could piss people off, but it's true. You sit in a tent and it gives you some sense of like confidence or insulates you from the outside world. So you feel safe, but it's totally made up. It's not true. I feel like in a tarp, if battle starts, I'm out. I'm not getting caught up in my tent. I'm ready to fight. And so I use a tarp. Okay, let's see. These are the stakes. There's 2 types of stakes that you should consider. This is the all-purpose groundhog stake. It's all-purpose and it's pretty lightweight. You pretty much always use these. This is called a needle stake. It's really thin and it's optimized for desert conditions or tough soil. So it's like hitting a nail in. So because it's smaller and thinner, it's just easier to hammer into the ground. But they don't work as well and they're just annoying. So, I don't even honestly know why I carry this. I probably just shouldn't even carry it. And then I carry the exact number of stakes that I need. A lot of people carry 1 or 2 extra ones. I don't do that because worst case, I'm tying off to a tree, or really worst case, I just lost one and now I don't have one. Who cares? Okay. You know, you can just resupply one at the next gear shop. I think the next most important thing is the rain jacket. This is Outdoor Research. I think it's called the 4A. I think it's like $200 or so. It's pretty much your run-of-the-mill winter trekking jacket. Like the last 2 people who completed successful winter southbounds used this jacket, and I bought it literally based off of that knowledge only. The difference between like a rain jacket and a mountaineering jacket, the only difference is the materials may be slightly tougher. That's debatable, but objectively, the only difference is that the hood on the top on a mountaineering jacket can fit over a helmet. And because I was moving through winter and at times I actually was wearing a mountaineering helmet, I got the mountaineering jacket. So that was another part of it. It also has little side vents that you can unzip, and so that mitigates sweating. So ultimately that's pointless because when you're really hiking up and down hills, you're going to sweat invariably. So the venting is like, I mean, it's a nice thought, but it's just, I don't know. It's not really like meaningful, I think. A rain jacket. So people want to know, does your rain jacket keep you dry? The answer is no rain jacket keeps you dry. Every rain jacket will ultimately, if it functions properly, get you wet. And so a rain jacket will block the rain from coming in from the outside, but if you're actually moving when you're walking, you're going to sweat on the inside. And, you know, instead of getting wet in the first 2 hours from the rain externally, you will, you know, if you're hiking for more than 2 hours, which any thru hiker basically will be, you're going to sweat out the inside. It's amazing. I mean, the sweating starts probably within half an hour, and within 2 hours, you're as wet on the inside as you would be, you know, if you weren't wearing the rain jacket on the outside. Okay, well then, like, why does anyone wear a rain jacket? It's because the rain jacket functions a lot like a wetsuit in the ocean. It traps the moisture against your skin internally, so your body's reheating the same water over and over. Really the only differences between jackets are, is it a mountaineering jacket and it has a hood, or is it a rain jacket where it has a hood that fits your actual human head? What's the durability of the material? They will market it based on like a venting scheme where they'll say, this jacket will let body vapor out at a given rate, and then it blocks the water externally. And they give you, I forget what the units are, it's like grams per centimeter cubed, and I don't know, like it has something to do with your water vapor. I never looked into it because they don't, like, it's like they give you a number that sounds scientific, but then they don't explain to you the real world meaning of this number. And at the point that they're not explaining the real world meaning of that metric, it means that the metric is probably largely pointless. Because if it really made a difference, I think they would go through the effort to explain to you like what this number means. So ultimately, like, I honestly think like you want a tough rain jacket that's as light as possible. And if you're on a trail where it never rains, like I wouldn't even bring a rain jacket, especially if it's somewhere warm, because you're not going to freeze to death if you get wet in the Arizona desert. But if you're hiking the AT in the winter or the early spring or the late fall, you can freeze to death or get hypothermia, so you have to carry a rain jacket. And because it rained all the time on this trail, I made sure to carry a slightly heavier, sturdier, better rain jacket, which is the Outdoor Research. I think it's the 4A or the Cirque. I don't know. I think it's the 4A, the Outdoor Research 4A2. Other awesome rain jackets, or anything that Montbell makes, is better than this jacket. They're higher quality. They're just more expensive. This is like, if you wanted a real rain jacket that's $200, this is kind of like, I think, the standard. Okay. Trying to keep this video to less than half an hour. These are Catahoula microspikes. There's one other brand called Hill Sounds. I've never tried them, but everyone in the White Mountains uses either Catula. I guess I said Catahoula. Now that I read it, it's Catula. So Catula or Hill Sounds. I don't know which is better, but the Catulas worked perfectly. I mean, I hiked through the Whites in 4 feet of snow with these, so by definition, these work. And these are actually heavy, so you really only want to carry these when you need these. Let's see. That's done. Okay. These are waterproof socks. When you hike, specifically in the snow, if you put these on over the socks that you're wearing, they basically work like a wetsuit, and it's unbelievable. You can hike in -10, -20 Fahrenheit, and these keep your feet warm. If you get rained on, they keep your feet warm. If you hike for more than like 3 or 4 days and rain consecutively and your feet never really get dry, all day long, you'll start to feel what feels like blisters on the bottom of your feet. And I mean, it's searing pain. And so that happened the first week on the AT. And on day 3, I realized, oh, wait, I have these waterproof socks. I literally forgot that I had them because in my head they were for snow. Then I was like, wait, my feet are like dying. So I put these on, and it just immediately mitigated that problem. So if you're hiking somewhere with serious snow, I would carry these. If you're hiking somewhere with rain, yeah, like I honestly probably wouldn't carry these. I would only carry these if I had to go through like bogs or through snow, because they're I mean, they're not heavy, but they're kind of heavy. But for the whole AT, like from the beginning of the AT through the Smokies to Roan Mountain, I would carry these. After that, I would probably ditch them. And then through the Whites, I would carry them. And that's only if you're doing it in the winter. Otherwise, you don't need these. Okay. These are fingerless -33-degree gloves. They're fingerless, which I think is awesome, because if you're on the move and you're consulting your phone a lot for like navigation, which you are, if you're through hiking, the fingerless gloves allow you to use the phone still, and they don't, your hands are not any colder using fingerless gloves compared to like the actual like fully fingered gloves. So I think these are awesome. This is an Njinji toe sock. I lost the other one today, so I actually bought a new pair, these are basically the same thing, but they stop here, so I think they'll be better for the PCT desert, which I have coming up in like a week or so. These are awesome. They prevent blisters. They're not comfortable initially, and a lot of people like complain about that, but it's like the first time anyone tried on a pair of jeans, they're not comfortable, but once you like, it's an acquired taste like tea or something. Once you acquire the taste for beer or wine or tea, you realize like there's a reason these exist, and it's because these are the superior sock. The only problem with them is that they don't have a good warranty. The Darn Tough socks are like maybe like $10 cheaper, and they come with a lifetime warranty that they really like stand by. If you read the Njinji warranty, it's like they're basically saying we're not going to give you a new pair of socks. So these are awesome though, because they really do mitigate, really pretty much stop in their tracks blistering. So I only carry one pair of socks. I do not carry a backup pair. This is a Smart Wool thin base layer. This is good for like down to 32 degrees Fahrenheit, even like 20 degrees Fahrenheit if you're really moving. If you're going below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, these come in different weights. This is like the thin underwear style. There's I think it's like 150, 200, and 400. 400 is if you're like a slow hiker and you sit around a lot, you'd want the 400. If you're really moving at all times and it's below 20 Fahrenheit, you would want the 200 gram. And if you're moving a lot and it's above 32 Fahrenheit, then you could get by with this. So I pretty much use this the whole AT, but when I got to the white section of the AT, I switched to a 200 gram just to be safe. So for water bottles, this changes all the time, but I always carry at least one Smart Water bottle, and I also carry typically a Gatorade bottle for the other one. The Smart Water bottle, the threading matches perfectly with what is it called? I forget the brand, but whatever the water filter is that you use with a water bottle, it only fits like consistently on the Smart Water bottle. So you could thread a filter onto this, but you couldn't thread a filter onto like most other bottles. So for that reason, it's good to carry a Smart Water bottle. To be clear, I don't actually use filters. I use Aquamira for my water treatment. It comes in two little things. One is like, what is it? Phosphoric acid, and the other one is chlorine dioxide. And so you take these two and you unscrew them, and you do 7 drops of each into like a bottle cap, and then after about 5 minutes it turns yellow because it chemically reacts and it smells like chlorine at that point. Then you dump it into your bottle with like, you know, what is this, like 1.5 liters or something, and after 30 minutes it's killed everything in there and you're good to go. Someone might point out that I got Giardia on the trail, so clearly this stuff doesn't work. That's not true, and also that logic doesn't follow. But anyway, the point is I wasn't using chemical treatment at that time, specifically because I had run out of it, and it's hard to resupply this along the way. So that's the downside of this is, you know, you have to hit gear shops to resupply it or have someone mail it to you. But on the other hand, this weighs less than a filter, and also it cannot freeze like a filter does. Like if it does freeze, you could just melt it in warm water, or stick it back in your pockets and it unfreezes quickly. Whereas those filters, if they ever have water in them and then they freeze, they're broken. And so if you're hiking in winter consistently and it's below 20 Fahrenheit, good luck keeping your filter from freezing even when you're walking. I know at night people are used to saying like, oh, stick your filter in your sleeping bag, it won't freeze. Well, what if you're hiking for weeks on end in 20 Fahrenheit weather, or 0 degrees Fahrenheit, or negative 10 Fahrenheit? I've done all of those on this hike, and the filter would freeze in the bag while I'm walking if I had carried it. So to me, it's more dangerous when hiking a winter through hike to carry a filter than it is to, risk not having chemical treatment briefly. So this stuff works phenomenally, and I stand by it. It's also, filtering takes a long time. This like before I hit a water source, I'll take 7 drops of each, put them in the Gatorade bottle, let it chemically combine. When I hit the water source, I fill this bottle up, and then I take this and I pour it into the bottle, and then I start hiking again. Total time required 1 minute. With those filters, sometimes it can take you half an hour to filter 1 liter if the water is dirty. So, pick your poison, but if you're going for speed, this is the best route, although it's slightly more expensive because you have to it's like $10 for these or something, and they last maybe 2 to 3 weeks. So you're spending $10 every 2 to 3 weeks. So in about half of a through hike, you've spent the same amount of money on these as you have on one filter. So if you want to save money, get the filter. If you want to go fast, use the chemical treatment. The reason I carry a Gatorade bottle instead of a smart water bottle for the extra one is that it's got a wide mouth, and the wide mouth fills like immediately, whereas this takes, like, when you put it in a stream, it takes like, I don't know, sometimes like 30 seconds to fill. And I don't know, I just hate standing there waiting for this to fill. So I'll fill this up and then I'll pour it in there, and it takes like 2 seconds versus like 30 seconds. It doesn't really matter, but that's why I carry it. Okay. Sweet. So this is a stove. Pausing. Okay. Oh. Okay. I'm just gonna briefly undo this so people see how it works. Okay, so you would typically carry like a butane fuel source, which you would then take this and screw it on top. And a lot of people who carry stoves on trail, carry stoves that are like 4 times bigger than this and weigh like 5 times as much. This is like one of the great hacks of ultralight hiking, is this weighs like just a couple of ounces, like maybe 1.5 ounces. And it works perfectly. So you can put this here, you can put a small like metallic, bowl on here to boil your water, or a coffee cup. Over here, this is a ball valve that rotates and it adjusts the amount of fuel that it lets out. Pretty much your only options are like tiny flame or giant flame. That's not true. You can do small, medium, large. The downside to this is that it's not as fuel efficient. So again, if you're trying to save money on trail, you would be better off carrying the heavier one because it's more fuel efficient. So you'll run through fuel canisters like somewhat more quickly using this than you would like using a pocket rocket. But again, this is just more weight off your back. So that's there. I carry a tiny Bic lighter. I bought this Bic lighter one day before I started the AT, and I'm still using the same lighter that I bought at the start of the AT. I also, generally speaking, like used the stove for the first half of the trip when it was ultra cold. But once like I was halfway through the trail, I pretty much stopped cooking. I think it was Pennsylvania was where I stopped cooking food. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, like toothbrush, toothpaste, this, I don't know. Like, I'm not gonna go into detail on that. All right, electronics. We're almost near the end here. Oh, so this is good for comparison. There are basically 2 power banks anyone should own. It's the Nightcore 10,000 milliamp hour battery, and then the Anchor 10,000 milliamp hour battery. The difference is this is probably something like $30. This is something like $50. This one's made of carbon fiber. This is made of like high quality like plastic. You can see volume wise, the Nitecore is much smaller. And then weight wise, the Nitecore weighs about maybe 30% less compared to the Anchor. Durability wise, the Anchor is more durable than the Nitecore. I have owned 3 of the Anchors that have broken. I have owned 4 of the Nitecores that have broken, and I can say that like the variable there is how nice was I to them. I was like probably meaner to the Anchors than I was the Nitecore. The Nitecores are a bit more fragile. With these power banks, some people carry like 20,000 milliamp hours, some people carry 10,000. The amount that you need really depends on like your power consumption, but because I'm vlogging along the way, you can consider it like one's dedicated to vlogging and the other is dedicated to everything else. So if you're not filming yourself on trail, all you would need is 10,000 milliamp hours. But if you are vlogging, you would want 20,000. And then no matter what amount you need, you should not carry 1 power bank, you should carry 2. So whatever your power need is, divide it by 2 and just get 2 of those power banks, so that if one breaks, you're not stuck somewhere 75 miles from the nearest town with a broken power bank and 25% remaining on your cell phone. That actually happened to me on the Arizona Trail, and I had to navigate without a map and without a phone for 40 miles in the desert. And so once you've done that one time, you'll never do that again. And the benefit of these like doing the 2 is just that if one breaks, you've got the other as a backup. So those are the power banks. Okay. And so like if you're a normal person and you need 10,000, just carry 2 5,000s is the idea. Okay. The wall charger is the next clutch part. This is an Anchor wall charger. It's actually surprisingly heavy, but it has 3 jacks on it. And so 2 are USB-C, 1 is USB, whatever the modern fast one is. Why do I do the, oh yeah, so it's, with these appliances, like some of them have to be charged off of a USB one, and some, you know, USB-C is better because it's faster, but you want ideally 1 USB standard and then 2 USB-Cs. The benefit of having 3 of these in one outlet charger is when you hit a town, you can charge 3 appliances at once. And so if you only had 1, yeah, the block is lighter, but think about it. If you're charging if you're charging 1 10,000 milliamp hour power bank, that takes, I think, exactly 3 hours. So if you're charging a 20,000 milliamp hour power bank, that's 6 hours. So if it's totally dead, you have to spend 6 hours charging that 1 power bank. But you don't just have 1 power bank. You also have a Garmin inReach, which takes 3 hours. You also have a headlamp, which takes 30 minutes. You also have a cell phone, which takes an hour. So if you only have the standard 1 slot wall charger, you're going to spend 14 hours changing your devices. And if you're staying in one hostel overnight, that means you're setting an alarm 6 times to wake up over the night to charge all 6 of your devices to rotate them out. So you're way better off with triple plug-in because you can do all 3 in 2 shifts. So when you get to the hostel, start charging stuff for 4 hours. And then when you're sleeping overnight, swap everything out and just let the second round charge. And so total time spent is like 2 minutes versus like ruining your life every time you stay in a hostel. So these are awesome. I have 2 headlamps, one of which I just bought today. Normally I would just carry 1 headlamp. A lot of people buy, if you go to any gear shop, except for the good gear shops like at Shaw's, they all carry the Black Diamond headlamp. And that Black Diamond headlamp, if you walk into a gear shop and they carry that headlamp, just turn around and run away. So it's just indicative that they don't know what they're doing. And it literally infuriates me when I see that headlamp. The biggest problem with that headlamp is it does not charge off of modern cables. It doesn't use USB-C. It doesn't use USB 3.0. It charges off of that like ancient cable. And so think about it. What if you have 4 different cables in your bag? If everything in your gear kit charges off of USB-C, which everything does, my iPhone does, this does, these headlamps do, every power bank charges off of USB-C. Then when I'm reaching around in my bag, it doesn't matter which cable I find, I just grab the first one because it's always a USB-C cable. But if that specific headlamp uses a random small cable, it's hard to find, and I'm always grabbing the wrong cable, and it's just incredibly frustrating. And it's like, why? And it's $60. This is like a ranting tangent, but don't buy that headlamp. The other thing that's dumb about that headlamp is that it carries enough charge to last like 3 consecutive nights of like night hiking. Why on earth would I need all of that weight in one headlamp when I could have 3 hours worth of a charge in one headlamp and carry a separate power bank and recharge it when I need it later? You know what I mean? Doesn't that make a lot more sense? And so let's say that you were going to hike like through an entire night. Well, no one does that consistently. So no one needs a headlamp that could run you through the entire night. Really what you would want would be 2 headlamps that weigh basically nothing, which is what these are. And you wear one that lasts 3 hours. And while the other one is in your bag, you charge it with the power bank. And so then after 3 hours, you switch over to the charged one, and then you start charging the other one. So that's the Nitecore headlamps, and these weigh close to nothing. These are just cables. I won't go into detail. It doesn't really matter what cable you buy. I guess it's nice to have one that's longer so that when you get into cafes, if the nearest outlet is like 5 feet away, you can reach it. This is the Garmin InReach Mini 2. I don't know, man. If you're through hiking a trail like the PCT and you're in the bubble, you honestly probably don't need to carry this because like everyone carries one. So if you really did break an ankle, you could just sit there and like cry for 2 hours and then someone will help you. But if you're hiking like in the whites and early in the season, this is absolutely critical. There's like 3 devices that you could pick from. One, I think one's called the Spot. It's the cheapest one, and you should get that one. The InReach makes 2, the InReach 1 and the InReach Mini 2. The InReach Mini 1, the battery life lasts like, if it's on tracking mode, like 1 day. This will last like 8 days, and it's $50 price difference. So just for the battery difference alone, I would personally get the InReach Mini 2. So basically just the 2 things you can do with this are that are worth mentioning. You can send messages by satellite from anywhere on Earth, and they have 3 different paying plans where it's like 10 messages a month or 30 a month or unlimited. And I do the 30 messages a month, and I basically never use it because you can pretty much always get by with a cell phone. But if you did find yourself with a broken ankle between Garfield and South Twin Mountain on the AT, in snow where no one's really going to get to you, this is amazing to have, because you can communicate with the outside world. Okay. Oh, and then you can also track your location as you hike, which is cool for like people trying to prove like that they did something. And it's also cool because your friends and family can like track where you are, and it's just fun. Okay. 2 paper maps of the White Mountains and Main Mountains. These are in case both of my power banks die and my phone dies. I can navigate to the trail using these. And I can also identify bail trails that are not on far out. So if you really did get stuck or you had to bail due to weather, you can locate every side trail on the AT using these. And I don't know. Yeah. I mean, if you're hiking the White Mountains in the summer, I guess you're maybe safe. But even on Mount Washington, people die on that mountain in the summer. And so I would recommend, particularly for the whites, even in the summer, carrying paper maps. And certainly in the winter, you would want to carry paper maps for Maine. You're probably safe in Maine without paper maps because it's lower elevation and warmer. But the whites, I would always carry paper maps through there personally. So not very ultralight, but ultra safe. I think that's it. I found this bug net in a Trail Magic bin from someone named Pineapple. Thank you, that saved my life. This bug spray is something I would never carry, but I found it on the trail, and I typically pick up trash on the trail, but this actually had a full load in it, so I have bug spray. And then this is just, I don't know, it's waterproof, made by Mountain Laurel Designs. I have one of their ultralight packs. Inside of it, I carry money, my debit card, my ID. Oh, that's like tape you can use to repair a sleeping bag or a jacket. And I really do not want to lose my debit card or my license. Okay. These are things that I really don't want to lose because I can't get on an airplane if I don't have an ID. And so I keep these zipped up in here. There's also a little pocket knife in there, and then this loop attaches to the bag. So if one of your pockets came undone, it's still like kind of like permanently attached to your bag in there. I actually will pull this pocket knife out to show you real quick. The thing that I like about it is, so it has a pocket knife, which is nice for opening things that are hard to open sometimes. in the field. And then the other thing is that it's got a full service like fingernail kit in it. So like clippers that are better than almost any clippers you've ever used before. I don't know. I think it was like $20 on Amazon. If you look up, it looks like it says QUTU, but it's basically more of like a nail care kit, and a afterthought pocket knife. And it's all you need. So I think that's everything. And I guess people would want to know what my base weight is, and not to be obnoxious, I literally have never measured my base weight. It's like, it's always changing, and like, people think that like you need to be below 10 pounds, you know, or like, I don't know what people say, but something like you need to be below 10 pounds to be ultralight. And like, I don't know, I think you should probably just carry exactly what you need and nothing more. And sometimes that's 7 pounds. Sometimes that's 10 pounds, sometimes that's 15 pounds. And when you're hiking, attempting a Winter Nobo, sometimes that's like 35 pounds or 40 pounds. So like the weight really doesn't matter. I think people think like, oh, I have to get below 10 pounds. Well, like, good luck getting below 10 pounds and trying a winter southbound, or good luck trying to get below 10 pounds and hike a winter northbound on the AT. If you're hiking the Arizona Trail in the desert, like, you could probably pretty quickly get below 10 pounds. But like, for most trails, like, you know, I don't know, like, it would be, there are certain items you should probably be better off carrying than getting below 10 pounds. And so like the actual numerical weight value literally is like stupid to measure. Like it literally is pointless to measure it. I guess it's like an indicator if you are hiking for your first time and it says 40 pounds, but like, you know, really you should just pack everything you think you need and then figure out quickly as you hike, like, the things you never touch, and then get rid of them. And then eventually you'll have the perfect base weight for what you as a person prioritize. If you're more of a camper, then you spend less time on your feet and you're going to carry more items that are heavier. If you're more of a hiker, you spend more time on your feet and you optimize your pack for moving. I am, to an extreme degree, a mover. And so you can see as I've run through this pack, like, I literally carried a tarp and I hiked through the AT in the winter. You know, like, I've made a lot of decisions that cut out a lot of weight. And where I carry extra weight, like this Anchor wall charger, yeah, that's kind of heavy, but the amount of time that saves me in town is like remarkable. So that's pretty much it though. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I would highlight from the winter gear. I also carried like an ice axe that I bought at a used store in Boulder. I carried a climbing helmet. I carried rain pants that have a side zip. They're made by Outdoor Research. I think they're called the Forays as well. They're awesome because you can put them on and take them off without taking your shoes off, which is pretty great when it's snowy and wet outside. Other than that, like, I would just generally state that like a winter pack for like attempting the winter southbound or earlier in January, there might be a couple more items you carry, like down booties or waterproof gloves, or, you know what I mean, like mittens, things like that. But this is like, that's 80% of it. So, and that's what I'm carrying right now. So that's pretty much everything. I think for the fun of it, since I have all this and there's no food in my bag right now, I'm actually going to load this up and I'm going to go weigh myself and we'll find out what my base weight is, because I'm sure there's people that want to know. All right, so I have the bag on. And there's a scale over here. Do this one. Okay. Oh, and I just realized there's things that I have on my body that I didn't include. So, hold on. So the shoes that I wore on trail the entire time were Topo Ultra Venture 3s. These are actually Merrell's because my Topos broke down and the last town I was in didn't have Topos. But the Ultra Venture 3s have a wide toe box, and like, I don't forget what the drop is, but the main thing about them is that they're comfortable and they have a wide toe box. Virtually everyone who through hikes does trail runners because they're lighter and they dry quicker when they get wet. Nothing much more to say about that. I'll skip the socks because those are more for the PCT. These shorts, I forget the brand, it's like NG. I'll write it at the bottom, but these are like, they don't have pockets and they're crazy lightweight. They're made for trail running. And And then the shirt that I'm wearing is the Kuiu Peloton 97, which is a hunting shirt, but it weighs 5 ounces, and it also is a fleece, so it keeps you warm from 70 to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So above 70, you can take it off. From 70 down to 32, you can just wear this, and if you're moving, you stay warm. And it's a fleece, so it stays warm even when it gets wet. This jacket is the Enlightened Equipment Torrid, so it's the same company who makes my sleeping bag, and it's the same material that they make their sleeping bags from. This is a synthetic material, not a natural down. Natural down is lighter, and it crunches down to a smaller volume, so it's a better jacket if you're not hiking. But if you are hiking, natural down loses all insulation once it gets wet, which will kill you. So you don't want to wear natural down when you're hiking anywhere cold, or really I would say anywhere. You want a natural down jacket or a synthetic down jacket, which is what this is. It's the opposite of a down jacket in that it's slightly heavier and slightly bulkier, but it stays warm when it gets wet, totally. I carry a bandana, and then I think that's everything I'm wearing. Oh, and then I have a Garmin watch, which is like a GPS watch. These watches are kind of dumb, but like, I don't know. Yeah, you probably don't need it, but it's nice to have a compass feature on it and a map where I can ping my location on it at any time if I really got lost. So if you're hiking like truly in winter in the whites where the trails aren't mapped very well, it actually is like pretty nice to have one of these. I think Koros is another brand that basically makes identical watches that are slightly cheaper. And then I think this is called the Enduro, which is their ultra marathon running one. It's got the longest battery life, and it has like, you know, visual mapping on it. So it's kind of the best one that they make. But you could get by with any of the other ones that have mapping on them too, or without it. So 170. And now we'll throw the bag on. And now I weigh 180. So that's hilarious. Without even trying, I had a 10-pound base weight. I had no idea what it was going to be. Maybe 9 pounds. Hold on. So, let me do it one more time without a bag. I just can't believe that's real. Let me look at my weight. I want to make sure that I can just read my actual body weight. Oh yeah, I did misread it. So I weigh 165. So that means that my base weight is 15 pounds, which doesn't surprise me. So yeah, I weigh 165. So I started the trail at like 185. I now weigh 165, so I've lost 20 pounds. My base weight was 15 pounds. And so when I hike the PCT, I bet my base weight is somewhere around like 11 or 12 pounds if I had to guess. But we'll see. So I think that's it. I don't think if there's anything that I missed covering. Yeah, like I'm gonna change my backpack out for the PCT, and I'm gonna change quite a few things out gear-wise for the PCT. So all of this really holds valid for the AT. The PCT is gonna be a lot lighter and faster, so it'll really be a completely different setup. So I'll have to do another video for the PCT. Honestly, I think the PCT will almost be more interesting to see how I'm able to get by on such few things.